There is an island on this planet 3 times the size of Texas. An island so large that if you placed it over a map of Europe, it would stretch from Norway to North Africa. And on that entire island, across more than 2 million square kilometers of territory, fewer people live than in a single mid-sized American town. 56,000 people. On the largest island on Earth, 80% of that island is buried under ice in places, nearly 3 kilometers thick, pressing down on the bedrock below with a weight that has measurably deformed the shape of the land itself. And right now, as you watch this, 4 of the most powerful countries on Earth are paying very close attention to it. The United States has said more than once and more than casually that it would like to acquire it. Denmark has owned it for centuries and has no intention of letting it go. China has been investing quietly and persistently in access to what lies beneath its ice. And Russia, watching the entire Arctic with the attention of a country whose northern coastline is melting open in ways that change the strategic map of the planet, is paying attention too. This is Greenland. The emptiest place on Earth that suddenly almost everyone wants. Let's find out why. Before we go any further, if this is the kind of storytelling you came to YouTube for, subscribe to Rome Folios right now. Every week, somewhere the world forgot to look. Hit subscribe. Let's begin. An island the size of a continent. Greenland is, by a significant margin, the largest island on Earth, a distinction that exists specifically because Australia, despite being larger still, is classified as a continent rather than an island, a technicality that has sparked more casual arguments than almost any other geography trivia question in existence. At 2.16 million square kilometers, Greenland is larger than Mexico, larger than Saudi Arabia, roughly 3 times the size of Texas, and more than 4 times the size of France. And yet, its entire population concentrated almost exclusively along narrow strips of ice-free coastline numbers, approximately 56,000 people. To put that density in perspective, if the United States had the same population density as Greenland, the entire country would be home to roughly 240,000 people, fewer than live in a single mid-sized American city today. The reason for this almost complete absence of human settlement is visible from space. The Greenland ice sheet covers approximately 79% of the island's total surface area, a single, continuous mass of ice that holds, by volume, the second largest store of fresh water on Earth, surpassed only by the ice sheet covering Antarctica. If the entire Greenland ice sheet were to melt completely, global sea levels would rise by approximately 7 meters, a number significant enough that climate scientists monitor the ice sheet's stability with a level of attention reserved for very few other single geographic features on the planet. The ice sheet formed over millions of years as snow accumulated faster than it melted in successive ice ages, compacting under its own weight into ice, then continuing to compact under the weight of subsequent snowfall, layer upon layer, year upon year, for hundreds of thousands of years. In the thickest sections of the ice sheet found in the eastern and central highlands, the ice reaches depths of nearly 3 kilometers. The weight of that ice is so immense that it has physically depressed the bedrock of Greenland beneath it, pushing the rock downward in a process geologists call isostatic depression. In some areas, the rock beneath the ice sheet sits below sea level, meaning that if you removed all of the ice instantly, parts of Greenland's interior would technically become an ocean basin, not land at all. The ice is not uniform, it moves. Glaciers flow outward from the central ice sheet toward the coast under the influence of gravity and their own immense weight, carving through mountain valleys, grinding rock into fine sediment, and eventually reaching the sea, where they calve, breaking off in enormous chunks that become icebergs. This entire system accumulation in the interior, flow toward the margins, calving at the coast has operated in some form for over 100,000 years. It is, in the most literal sense, one of the largest and oldest continuously functioning natural systems on the surface of the planet. The beauty that calves. On Greenland's western coast, just north of the Arctic Circle, the town of Ilulissat sits beside one of the most dramatic and most scientifically significant glacial systems on Earth, the Ilulissat Ice Fjord. Designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2004, is fed by the Sirmek-Kujalleq Glacier, also known as Jakobshavn Glacier, one of the fastest moving and most productive glaciers anywhere in the northern hemisphere. Sirmek-Kujalleq alone produces an estimated 10% of all icebergs calved from the entire Greenland ice sheet. The glacier moves at speeds that, by glacial standards, are extraordinary, up to 40 meters per day in its fastest flowing sections, a velocity that allows it to discharge enormous volumes of ice into the fjord below on a near continuous basis. Icebergs calved from this single glacier are believed to include the iceberg that sank the RMS Titanic in 1912, not confirmed beyond reasonable scientific doubt, but considered highly probable given the iceberg's documented drift patterns and the dominant role Sirmek-Kujalleq plays in southern Baffin Bay's iceberg production. Standing at the edge of the Ilulissat Ice Fjord, watching icebergs the size of office buildings drift slowly through water, so cold it appears almost black. By contrast, you witness something that operates on a timescale most human visual experience has no reference point for. The calving itself, when a section of glacier face breaks away and crashes into the water below, happens with a sound that witnesses consistently describe as among the loudest natural sounds they have ever experienced. A deep, resonant crack, followed by a roar as thousands of tons of ice strike the water, followed by a wave that can capsize boats positioned too close, even at a considerable distance from the actual point of impact. It happens regularly enough that watching for it from a safe vantage point along the fjord's edge has become one of the primary reasons visitors travel to this remote corner of the Arctic at all. The wildlife of Greenland's coastal waters reflects an ecosystem shaped entirely by ice and cold. Humpback whales migrate into Greenlandic waters during the summer months to feed on the dense concentrations of krill and small fish that thrive in the nutrient-rich ice-cold currents. Narwhals, among the most unusual marine mammals on Earth, the males bearing a single spiraled tusk that can grow over 2 meters in length, move through deeper Arctic waters in pods. Their tusks believed to serve both sensory and social functions that researchers are still working to fully understand. Polar bears, increasingly studied as one of the most visible indicator species for Arctic climate change, hunt seals along the edges of sea ice that forms and breaks up according to seasonal patterns that have become measurably less predictable over recent decades. And above all of it, when conditions align clear skies, sufficient solar activity, and the deep darkness of an Arctic winter night, the aurora borealis performs across the sky in colors and patterns that have drawn travelers to high-latitude destinations for centuries. Greenland's position, far from the light pollution of any major city, combined with its northern latitude, makes it one of the most reliable locations on Earth to witness the aurora during the winter months, when darkness can last nearly 20 hours a day in the northernmost settlements. Living on the ice. Nuuk, Greenland's capital and largest settlement, is home to roughly 19,000 people, making it, by a wide margin, the smallest capital city of any sovereign or semi-sovereign territory on Earth. The town's brightly painted houses, red, yellow, blue, green, stand out dramatically against the gray rock and white snow of the surrounding landscape, a tradition with roots in the Danish colonial period, when building colors were originally used to indicate a structure's function. Red for commercial buildings, yellow for hospitals, blue for fish processing facilities, black for police stations. Today, the color coding has largely faded as a strict system, but the visual tradition remains, giving Nuuk's harbor a distinctive and immediately recognizable character. Greenland has been a self-governing territory within the Kingdom of Denmark since 1979, with expanded autonomy granted in 2009, controlling most of its own domestic affairs, while Denmark retains authority over defense, foreign policy, and monetary matters. The Greenlandic Inuit, who make up the substantial majority of the island's population, maintain cultural traditions that connect directly to thousands of years of Arctic survival knowledge, even as modern infrastructure, internet access, and global media have become a normal part of daily life in the island's settlements. Dog sledding remains both a practical mode of transportation in many of the more remote northern and eastern settlements and a deeply held cultural tradition. Greenlandic sled dogs, a distinct breed maintained through careful selective breeding over centuries specifically for Arctic conditions, are capable of pulling sleds across sea ice and snow in temperatures that would be lethal to most other working animals within hours. In settlements without road connections to other towns, which describes the majority of Greenland's populated places, since the country has almost no roads connecting its scattered coastal settlements, dog sledding, snowmobiles, boats, and small aircraft remain the only practical means of travel between communities. Traditional hunting practices, including seal hunting and, under strictly regulated international quotas, limited whale and narwhal hunting, remain economically and culturally significant in many Greenlandic communities, representing a continuation of subsistence practices that predate Danish colonization by thousands of years. The Inuit peoples who first settled Greenland arrived in several distinct migration waves beginning around 2500 BC, developing technologies and survival strategies, the kayak, the harpoon, specialized cold weather clothing constructed from seal and caribou skin that allowed sustained human habitation in one of the most physically demanding environments on the planet. Life in Greenland's more remote settlements still requires a relationship with the natural environment that has largely disappeared from most of the developed world. Weather determines whether boats can travel between settlements. Sea ice thickness determines whether dog sleds or snowmobiles can safely cross frozen fjords. The hunting season for specific species is governed by both traditional knowledge passed through generations and modern scientific quota systems designed to ensure sustainable harvest. It is a life lived in close, continuous negotiation with an environment that offers very little margin for error. And for the people who have built their lives there, across generations, in some family lines for thousands of years, it remains unambiguously home. If you're still here and what comes next involves a secret literally buried beneath the ice, subscribe to Rome Folios right now. This is what we do every week. Hit subscribe. What is resurfacing? In 1959, during the height of Cold War tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, the United States military began construction on a remarkable and, for decades, largely classified project beneath the Greenland ice sheet. Camp Century. Built directly into the ice, approximately 240 kilometers from the coast, Camp Century was a network of tunnels carved into the ice sheet, housing living quarters, laboratories, a chapel, a barbershop, and remarkably, a functioning portable nuclear reactor, the first of its kind ever deployed in a polar environment, providing power and heat to the entire underground facility. Camp Century was publicly presented as a scientific research station, studying Arctic engineering and ice sheet behavior. It was also, according to documents declassified decades later, the proposed testbed for a project called Iceworm, a plan to construct a vast network of tunnels beneath the Greenland ice sheet, capable of housing up to 600 mobile nuclear missile launchers, positioned to strike targets within the Soviet Union, hidden and protected by hundreds of meters of ice. Project Iceworm was never fully realized. Engineers discovered that the ice sheet's natural movement, the same slow, continuous flow that carries glaciers from the interior toward the coast, was deforming the tunnels faster than anticipated, making the long-term structural stability of a permanent missile network impractical. Camp Century was abandoned in 1967. The nuclear reactor was removed. But a significant quantity of physical infrastructure, along with biological, chemical, and low-level radioactive waste generated during the camp's operation, was left behind, buried under the assumption reasonable at the time, given the climate science available in the 1960s, that the ice sheet above the site would continue accumulating indefinitely, burying the abandoned base under ever-thickening ice for the indefinite future. That assumption no longer holds. Climate research published in recent decades has projected that, under current warming trajectories, the area around the former Camp Century site could begin experiencing net ice loss rather than continued accumulation within this century, raising the prospect that the buried waste, assumed permanently sealed, could eventually begin to remobilize and potentially reach the surface or enter the meltwater drainage system feeding the surrounding ocean. It is one of the more striking examples of how Cold War-era decisions made under one set of environmental assumptions are now colliding with a changing climate that those decisions never anticipated. Camp Century is not the only secret the ice sheet has been keeping. Scientists drilling ice cores' long cylindrical samples extracted from deep within the ice sheet have recovered some of the most valuable climate records available anywhere on Earth. Because snow falls and compacts into ice in annual layers, similar to tree rings, ice cores allow researchers to read backward through climate history with remarkable precision, measuring trapped air bubbles for ancient atmospheric composition, volcanic ash layers for historical eruption records, and isotopic ratios that reveal past temperatures with a resolution extending back over 120,000 years in Greenland's deepest cores. These records have provided some of the most important direct evidence available to climate scientists studying how Earth's atmosphere and temperature have changed over time, including detailed records of abrupt climate shifts. that occurred at the end of the last ice age, shifts that happened far more rapidly than earlier models had assumed possible. The ice sheet, in other words, is not simply beautiful and not simply remote. It is also one of the most valuable scientific archives on the planet, a frozen record of the Earth's climate history, slowly melting, with both the secrets it has kept and the records it preserves becoming more urgent to read with each passing year. Why everyone wants it now. Greenland's strategic significance has been recognized by major powers for longer than most people realize. During the Second World War and throughout the Cold War, the United States maintained a significant military presence in Greenland, recognizing the island's position as a critical link in monitoring North Atlantic and polar approaches to North America. Patuxent Space Base, formerly known as Thule Air Base, remains an active United States military installation in northwestern Greenland today, supporting missile warning systems and space surveillance operations. In recent years, American interest in Greenland has extended beyond military cooperation into more direct territorial discussion, with proposals made publicly and repeated more than once to explore the possibility of the United States acquiring the island outright. Denmark, which has held sovereignty over Greenland since the early 18th century and granted the island significant self-governing autonomy in 1979 and again in 2009, has consistently and firmly rejected any suggestion that Greenland is for sale, while Greenlandic political leaders have emphasized that any decision about the island's future status rests with the Greenlandic people themselves. China has approached Greenland through a different avenue, entirely economic investment. Chinese state-linked companies have expressed interest in Greenland's mining sector, particularly its deposits of rare earth elements, materials essential to manufacturing everything from smartphones to electric vehicle batteries to advanced military equipment. Several proposed Chinese investments in Greenlandic mining and infrastructure projects have drawn close scrutiny and, in some cases, intervention from Danish and other Western governments concerned about strategic mineral access falling under Chinese economic influence in the Arctic. Russia's interest in Greenland is less direct, but follows a broader pattern of intensified Russian military and economic activity across the wider Arctic region, as melting sea ice opens new shipping routes along Russia's own northern coastline, and increases the strategic value of the entire polar region for resource access, military positioning, and global trade logistics. The reason all of this attention has intensified specifically now traces back to the ice itself. As the Greenland ice sheet melts at an accelerating rate, previously inaccessible mineral deposits including rare earth elements, uranium, and other strategically valuable resources become more economically feasible to extract. As Arctic sea ice more broadly retreats, shipping routes through Arctic waters become viable for more of the year, potentially reshaping global trade logistics in ways that benefit whichever nations control strategic positions along those routes. And as global temperatures continue rising, the disproportionate role Greenland's ice sheet plays in global sea level, that potential 7-meter rise if the ice sheet melted completely, makes monitoring and, for some nations, controlling access to the island a matter of increasing long-term strategic interest. Greenland did not change. The ice did, and as it changes, the rest of the world's interest in this enormous, nearly empty island has changed along with it. Greenland remains, by any practical measure, one of the emptiest places on Earth. 56,000 people, spread across a coastline that wraps around an island 3 times the size of Texas, the vast majority of its interior buried under ice that has been accumulating for longer than human civilization has existed in its current form. It is extraordinarily beautiful in the specific, severe, overwhelming way that only genuinely extreme landscapes can be. It holds, beneath its surface, both literal Cold War secrets and a climate record stretching back over 100,000 years. And it now sits, almost without choosing to, at the center of a quiet competition between some of the most powerful nations on Earth. Not because Greenland changed, but because the ice that has protected its isolation for thousands of years is no longer protecting it the way it once did. The biggest island almost no one lives on may not stay quite so empty, quite so quiet, or quite so overlooked for very much longer. If this video showed you a side of Greenland you didn't know existed, share it with someone who needs to see it too. Subscribe to Rome Folios if you haven't already. We go deep on the places the world forgot to look at every single week. And leave a comment, could you survive a winter in Greenland? I'll see you in the next one.